Hey guys, it's your girl Eda, also known as the CEO Paralegal, author, legal consultant, legal educator, and of course, your host of the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. Join in on the fun by downloading, subscribing, and sharing our content. If you would like to take your support further, we now have Let's Talk Paralegal podcast subscription boxes. So, what are you waiting for? Hit pause, share, and subscribe now. In this episode, I'm going to tackle the critical topic of regulatory and compliance in the legal industry. As a legal support staff member, I want you to get informed about this ever-changing landscape of regulations and compliance because it is essential to both your career success and your firm's integrity. I'm going to discuss the importance of understanding the compliance requirements, the potential consequences of the non-compliance, and how you as a professional can stay ahead of the curve. Listen in for more. Hey guys, it's your girl Eda. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. And today I'm going to be talking about a super exciting topic. Well, maybe not so exciting, but it's a topic that we all need to know about, whether we are the CEO of the company, whether we are the legal assistant or the front desk help. We need to understand regulation and compliance. I know, super sexy. Now, before you hit pause or stop and get out of this podcast, I want to actually walk you through why this is important, what is regulatory compliance, and how this is going to help you as a legal professional really stay compliant, stay on top of things, but most importantly, stay relevant. Because at the end of the day, this is not going away. It's something that's not really taught to us unless we're thrown into it or we're highly focused in on it, or if it's our actual job. So understanding why, what, and the how, all the things, is going to really help you improve your legal career because the more you know, the more value you're adding to your skills, yourself, and of course, your firm. So let's first go over what regulatory and compliance is, why it even exists, right? All right. So we're going to talk about the basics, right? So what exactly are we talking about when we're talking about regulatory compliance? It refers to the rules, the laws, the guidelines that are set by governing bodies, both by federal and state levels, right? So this dictates how legal professionals and firms must operate. So this is definitely something you want to stay on top of and definitely something you want to adhere to and make sure you're following the rules, right? If not, we can get into a lot of trouble and we don't want to do that. So I'm going to give you an example of how this can play on a day-to-day basis, right? So in the legal work for the regulations regarding the protection of a client, information, think about attorney-client privilege or data privacy laws or maintaining confidentiality during a document review or e-discovery process. If the law firm doesn't follow these rules, it could face really severe penalties. And this can include really hefty fines, loss of business, or the worst, disbarment for the attorney. So really understanding what the rules are, where those lines are, and staying within those lines is really going to be important because at the end of the day, we're supporting the lawyers, we're supporting the business, and we're there to protect them, the business, and our clients and our community in its totality, right? So really understanding and staying appeased to this information is going to be important. And so as a legal support staff member or a legal professional in general, it's really crucial that we adhere to this, that we're on top of it, that we're on the listservs of any local regulatory, federal, whatever the firm is practicing at that point, whatever actually resonates, whatever actually is the regulation of that specific practice that your firm is in. All of that, we want to make sure that we're following it to the letter because is really important. And here is why it actually matters. Aside from everything that I just told you, and I probably scared half of the people listening right now, why regulatory and compliance is important, why this is a thing, why it even exists. It's because it's going to help us have a more regulatory environment, right? So every task that we do, everything that we touch, preparing documents, handling client information, even something as simple as using the firm software can impact the firm's compliance status. So, in fact, in many cases, regulatory infractions happen not because of intentional wrongdoing, but because of unintentional mistakes. So, we were trying to be well, right? We meant well, and we just didn't know about it, which is why the knowledge and the vigilance of all this is really, really important. And this is where it comes to the compliance portion, right? Because we want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and protecting, again, our clients, our firm, our law firm, the whole nine yards, right? So, why, as legal professionals, should we focus on this? Well, I kind of told you just now, but the short answer is to safeguard, right? So we're safeguarding the integrity of the legal process, legal industry, obviously all of our colleagues, and the compliance helps us prevent these heavily costly mistakes. And it can damage the reputation, it can damage it financially. So there's a lot of not so good reasons as to, you know, I guess the downfall of not following regulatory compliance, but that's definitely something that we need to focus on. And in addition to this, there's a lot of client data breaches, and I think this is where a lot of people get confused, especially when we pivoted in the legal industry when it came to COVID. A lot of attorneys prior to COVID were not having it, right? They did not want to do the whole virtual thing. They were like, absolutely not, no virtual court, no virtual hearings. Like that is a breach of, confidentiality, and we've signed non-disclosures with our clients, and you name it, they threw it on the wall, and eventually COVID came and nothing stuck. So that made our court system, the way we practice law, the way we support the practice of law, very different. And so now we're looking at it with different eyes. So now everything is okay. Well, it's getting more susceptible in the breach, right? So with the softwares that we utilize, with the IT issues, hacks, cybersecurity, phishing, spam, like we've all heard these terminologies, and we kind of deal with them day to day. However, we don't really know what all that means and how we can prevent that. So really understanding that is essential, right? So we want to make sure that we understand what a client data breach is, how we can prevent cybersecurity hacks, what a phishing email is. If it's questionable, delete it. Because you better just have a call versus, hey, I sent you an email. Oh, well, we probably didn't receive it because of our data, data wall or firewalls or anything like that. So our document management systems, our legal project management systems, they all holds really sensitive information. Most of this holds 90% of our clients' personal information, which includes identifiable, like social security numbers, passports, information, driver's licenses, date of births. All this information is pretty much gold, right? For any hacker. This is what they need in order to, create a fraud, in order to take an identity, in order to create falsified documents, you name it. This is really essentially what they need. So recognizing these phishing attempts, understanding that how to properly encrypt files when you're sending them out of your network, making sure that your law firm actually has these systems in places, that every action that you take is adherence to these rules and the protection of our clients' information, of the law firm's information, of our employment information, because if they can hack the system, they can hack everything. So your information is sensitive and susceptible to this as well, especially if you are a employer on the books with accounting. They need all your information. They even have your banking information, because how do you get paid? So this is really what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to support my episode and let you know that this is not just rules put in place to prevent certain things. No, these are rules put in place so that we can prosper and continue, because that's really what's going to happen. So let's take the e-discovery process, which is the number one, actually most quote unquote fished information, because especially when it comes to the interrogatories portion, because the first question is always going to be, what's your recent address? What's your date of birth? What's your social security number? And what's your marital status? Most likely, 9 times out of 10, the first question out of an interrogatory is going to include some format of what I just stated. So this is the number one hacked document. So when we're sending information to opposing party, making sure that it's in a secure file, making sure that we've taken the extra precaution, possibly given it a personalized password, whatever it is, we need to assure that our client's information is actually being protected, right? They're trusting us with this information, so we need to protect it just as much as they're trusting us. So the rules can evolve, obviously, we know this, and staying ahead of the curve is essential to our success, but also to the success of all the legal industry and all the firms out there and all the legal organizations in general. Anybody that deals with legal, which is every single company, because every single company has either a legal department, legal representation, or some form, shape, or form of legal support. So understanding that this actually translates throughout the entire world and the entire world of business is really crucial. So I gave you all the why you should be in it. What is it? Let me tell you how we can stay compliant. So of course we have our CLEs, we have our conferences, we have our networks. You know, the industry is pretty big. We have plenty of connections and webinars and all the things. And obviously legal news, legal trends, a lot of softwares put out blogs and things like that that we can sign up and receive this information. But I think the most, I guess, important resource would be the resource itself, right? Where this information is deriving from. So if you work with a specialized court, whether it's federal, state, local, or all three, making sure you're on their listservs every time an administrative order is, provided or even thought of, right? Because they even tell you, hey, by the way, we have this administrative order that's on the books to be reviewed by this time. The meeting is on this date. Everything is basically public information. So really staying on the listserv of these localized court systems and, just go straight to the source. Sometimes it gets lost in translation, not to get too political, but, some of them have a mission against or for these rules and regulations and compliances. So it gets lost in translation when it's translated into a blog, newsletter, whatever it is, right? Dependent on the resource, right? So this just goes straight to the source. That's always the most, I guess, safe way to receive safe information and accurate information. Again, it gets lost in translation. Also, hopefully your law firm, organization, or any other, I guess, department has what they call a compliance officer. And this is either by third party. A lot of people outsource this information, but there has to be some way, shape, or form of a compliance officer. If there's not, start doing your research, start reaching out to, compliance officers, because this is really important. We really need to have some sort of a compliance officer that is involved in the day in and day out of the actual law firm. So maybe a suggestion that you can provide or implement depending on the power that you have and the responsibilities, right? So I want you to establish an open line of communication with everybody on your staff, everybody on your team, the attorneys. This really helps everybody get on the same page. So and I want to make this very, very, very clear. The regulatory and compliance that I'm talking about are not the internal policies or specific policies that your law firm goes. That's just the way that they actually run their business. And that's perfectly fine. Obviously, knowing that is important, but it's not going to break any laws and it's not going to disbarred unless it's directly translated or directly connected to the regulatory compliances that are out there, right? So if it's attached to a statute, if it's attached to a case law or a administrative order or a localized order or whatever the case may be, that's different. But we're talking about the regulatory and compliance on a greater scale. So whatever the court system does, whatever the judges are complying with, whatever we need to do in order to run business normal, that's different. Okay? So understand that regulatory and compliance is statewide, nationwide, federal, all the things. Okay? And then we want to document everything, right? It's a CYA. I don't really need to tell you what that stands for. I've always did it. I still do it. I do everything in writing. Any important decision I make, I love to do it in writing. That way I have something to actually fall back on. If it's dated, even better. If it can't be changed, even better. If it's reportable, great. So really start documenting everything. Really keep a record of the actions and everything that you've taken in order to get to that point. Again, CYA. It's very important. Look, at the end of the day, compliance is not just a rule that somebody has to follow. It's really a mindset, right? So we have to adopt compliance focused approach to work with your and add value to the firm. So protecting that reputation, ultimately, preventing disbarment, providing that best service that we always talk about here on the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast, and really creating that, right? So your role in the regulatory and compliance, to wrap this episode up really quick, is it's not just a checklist, right? Because I often say this on the podcast and through my platform. Task lists are a checklist. They are not just to cross off. This is a checklist. This is something that should be added. This is something that should be living and baked into your day-to-day responsibilities. It's a foundational element for your success, for ethics, for all the things of the law firm and yourself. It's to prevent anybody from getting into a lot of trouble. And for legal support staff, we're usually the gatekeepers. We're usually the ones that ensure that these standards are upheld every day. We're the ones that are actually implementing everything. So this is just another thing that we have to worry about, which I'm so sorry, but hey, it isn't what it is and we have to do it. It's mandatory. So stay informed. Be proactive, please. You know me, I'm all about being proactive versus reactive. Stay tuned for that episode. I have a whole episode on being proactive versus reactive and what that means. So, hone in on that for a second. Never underestimate the role of maintaining the compliance within your firm. By doing so, you're not only securing your firm's future, but also advancing your career. So it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you found this discussion helpful, not so boring, and don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, share. I hope you stayed empowered, stay informed, and as always, until justice is served, keep growing your career, and I'll be here. Bye, guys.